back to Glad Reviews. It's going to be a spoiler portion of the Batman review. So, spoiler warning, you have been warned. Go into it, Seth.
All right.
Explain why you hated this movie.
Yes, I absolutely despise this movie. First off, so many scenes where people are looking through the windows of other people's houses.
Let's be fair, it is Gotham.
I'm sure they do it a lot at New York too. I'm not sure.
Well, that
But
explains a lot of the stuff there.
all right, let's start with the beginning of the movie. Obviously, you have the scene of him just looking through the window for like a good 10 minutes.
Oh, for Riddler?
Yes.
Yeah,
I was like,
I thought that was.
is he looking through like a scope for a gun or binoculars or what? Because he's there for a good long while.
I have no idea, but I'm assuming
And then
binoculars.
and then he just showed up in the house.
Well, yeah, because I
I'm
think
like,
you wanted him alone.
yeah, but it wasn't the fact of like the dude was standing there drinking whatever drink, and his back was to the window. All of a sudden, he walks away. The Riddler's there. I'm like, how did you get there?
I thought that was actually cool.
No, I thought it was cool too. But I'm like, did you come through the window? If you came through the skylight, how did he not see you?
I'm assuming he came through the skylight, but
Yeah, but the kid was there.
Not when he would have gone through.
Yeah, but the kid was there playing. He was watching through the binoculars. The kid left with the wife, and then he was standing there drinking his drink, and then all of a sudden he was there.
Yeah, but it looks like he was coming back in and then going to drink his drink as he turned on the TV.
Not possibly.
So, I mean, I could have to go back and watch that scene again because I wasn't paying attention for that, but
It was a good like 10-minute long stare of binoculars, I will
yeah.
say.
Hey, but that got you invested into like what the heck is going on? What's this got to do with Batman?
It did.
So,
I will say that. And then he walks in, just, does what he does. I really enjoyed the clues he left behind. I think
yeah,
they did a good job.
yeah.
I do because I do and I don't. I do like how quick Batman solves these riddles, and I don't like how fast he solved these riddles.
Well, I mean, to some extent,
Like,
yes. And he doesn't always solve them correctly. Because remember that Rata
oh yeah,
Alada? That
yeah.
one completely eluded him and didn't realize that it was URL Rata Alada instead of, which I thought was funny. Penguin was funny in this. I liked Penguin a lot. The more
I
I
feel like
think about it, the more I like Penguin.
100%, but I feel like we'll get the full aspect of
Come
Penguin that
on.
they're getting
Open
at
your
in the next
eyes.
movie. He's going to
Yeah.
be a key figure, I feel like, in the next movie. So I'm really excited to see his
I think he's
evolution.
gonna be kid figure. I think he's gonna be more of a background guy until about the third film when he's
Yes,
gonna be like
well, he's
hiring
going to be
people.
around. We're going to see him grow into the Penguin,
Yeah,
like the mob boss Penguin.
yeah.
So I'm excited to see that.
Well, I think by the third film he's gonna be hiring people like Joker and maybe even Firefly, which would be cool to be seen in a Batman movie because I don't think he's ever been brought into the
Not in
live,
a live action.
not in a live action
Not in live
movie.
action.
In a show, Firefly's been in, but it was Gotham and that sucked. So it started out good and then it really sucked.
Another thing I didn't like was having Batman walk through, first off, going to the crime scene, the first crime scene. You're followed by Jim Gordon, and then Batman's following him. And all the cops are just turning and staring. And I'm like, I get Batman's been doing this for like a year, 2 years, but still, to me, Batman will break in, get the information he needs, and then leave.
Yeah.
He's not going to
Well,
walk through the front door.
to be fair, I think at this point he's trying to work with the police. However, they don't really address that, and even then, that really doesn't happen until later on anyway.
Hey,
So I want to think it
yeah.
happened within year 2. I think maybe like within year,
I want to
probably
say
by year 5.
by the
Around that
time Jim Gordon is about to become commissioner.
Yeah, and by that time he's already got Robin, or he's somewhat got Robin going into
Yeah.
or close to being, ironically, the dynamic duo.
I didn't like that aspect.
I will say,
I mean,
Riddler, love the actor who played him, and I thought he did a good job in some areas. But the costume is something I don't like specifically for the main guy of Riddler. I don't mind it for the henchman. In fact, it was really good for the henchman, in my point, which ended up coming in
it
later
was
in the
mostly
film.
the mouth, like the strap that covered the mouth. I was like, that's really weird.
I would like to see him if I'm hoping he does show up again later on. in like the next two films.
I have a
But if he
feeling
does
he
show
will.
up, I
I would
want
have
him to
been.
show up in like the green suit and the tie, or
I would
even
have
if it's or
enjoyed
even in the
more of
jumpsuit.
like. I would have enjoyed more of like a he wore a mask and it
Yeah,
had like question marks or something on it that represented riddles or something.
yeah. I would have rather
Anything.
just shown up in his classic attire. But I
Well,
mean, I
yes.
understand like they're
Um,
trying to make it more
instead
realistic.
of
But I mean,
Yeah, instead of him wearing that weird mask, just have a mask that covers the face like a
yeah,
jester and just do it like that. I feel like that it would have looked nice for him, but I guess it was more to be intimidating than to look nice.
yeah.
But to me, every time I saw him in the mask, I was like, it doesn't seem like a main villain. It seems like just a lackey.
Which is what main problem I had, but I get like he's just starting out. But
Yeah,
around this time anyway, which I think is gonna happen next movie, is that it's gonna have a whole bunch of smaller time supervillains like Calendar Man showing up in their regular attire, trying to make a name for himself, kind of like how Riddler did. So I think that's gonna show up in the next film. And
the
that's why
question,
I think Harvey Dent will be in the next film as well.
I would
Because
be
he'll be
okay
the
with
new
Harvey Dent.
because he'd be the new DA,
DA, yeah.
because the DA just recently got killed and the whole
Or
staff
just
probably got
have
fired anyway. He'd be the new DA, I would think.
yeah, no, I can
So
yeah, I can
I could
understand
totally
that.
see that working out and then creating Two-Face within that film. So where Batman actually has to lose a close friend, whereas in this
Yeah.
one he almost lost Alfred. He is going to lose Harvey Dent and be trying to get him back multiple times. I would like to actually see that instead of them just killing him off within the 2 minutes that they're going to play him. Which I love Dark Knight. That's just one of the things where it's like Two-Face just in there for 2 seconds. Like, it's great to see his fall into Two-Face, but they didn't let him stay at all. The rise of Two-Face and then the fall of him real quick. The fall of Harvey Dent,
Yeah.
the rise of Two-Face, and then it just goes away just as soon as it came in.
Yeah, that was a little sad and disappointing. I was gonna say I really enjoyed Alfred in this movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought the gold
talking
guy did
about
good.
talking about his background just a little bit as more of a bodyguard than a servant, which Alfred is. Pretty sure he was part of the British.
Yeah, he was in the British military, and then his father was originally Thomas and Martha Wayne's butler, and then his father died, and then he took up his father's
Mhm.
role. So
And so
if
I'm
I remember the
excited that
comic
they're
books
going.
correctly,
Yeah, I'm
I don't
excited
know
they're
if that's
going
the
into
newer comic
more
books or the older ones though. So
backstory history because we gotta see the mention of both the founding fathers of Gotham,
honestly,
the Waynes and the Arkham. So I was
which
excited to hear that.
yeah, which ironically, Martha isn't Arkham; she's a Kane. So that's one thing that did confuse me. But on the
Okay.
plus side, though, that means we won't get Batwoman in this movie thing. So that's a plus. So I looked at that as
Well,
okay, there's a
I don't
problem,
see I
but there's
don't
a
see them
plus.
having yeah, I don't see them having time to do a Batwoman.
Oh no,
100%
I
they
don't either.
probably
But
have
I'm
time
just
to do
like,
a Robin.
yeah, well, I'm hoping they do, because if they don't, that's kind of just
We haven't
underused
seen a
utility.
we haven't seen a Robin in a long time.
Not since Burt Ward, I don't think. Actually, no, not since the
Mm-mm.
1989 Batman.
No, not since George Clooney's,
And even
which
then, you
was
couldn't even say that was Robin. That was more the Nightwing suit he was wearing.
yeah,
So Burt Ward would probably be the closest thing to the Robin suit that we've seen in a movie. In the show Titans, the Robin suit looks all right, but the show isn't that good.
Robin's not Robin.
Not really. Like they made Tim Drake black. They had Aqualad in there, and then they killed him off. They had
Rip
Donna Troy
Aqualad.
killed. Hawk and Dove are there, but they made Hawk a molested child, and they got Dove, the original Hawk and Dove. Dove, they originally race changed him into a biracial
I
kid,
also
and I
then
don't
you
get
have
that because they're supposed to be like brothers or whatever. That
yeah,
was a whole thing. It's just stupid. We
and
could
then you
save
have
that for something
Starfire
else.
that's like that it seems more like a Blackfire than a
Oh
Starfire.
no, no. I think they're making that all Tamaranians are black, because in
Well,
the
yeah,
show there is another Tamaranian.
I'm also talking about the personality.
Yeah,
The personality is more of a Blackfire than a Starfire.
yeah. They
Just
made Beast
angry
Boy.
at everything.
Yeah, yeah. They made Beast Boy Asian. They also did the spin-off series Doom Patrol, in which they made Negative Man
Mm.
gay or
I
bi
didn't
or
watch
whatever.
Doom Patrol because I was like,
I
I'm
watched a
not.
few of it, and then I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to watch any more of it. I watched a few of it just because it looked interesting enough to where, okay, maybe they'll harken to the older stuff. And then within the first couple episodes, I was like, become more of a pain to watch. So back to Batman.
I will say another scene that I got confused at is I was more baffled at how many police officers they have when they were chasing down Batman, and I'm like, he's being charged by all these police officers, and I want to know how many police officers, how many floors does their police station have, and how many police officers are in that?
I would assume at least, judging by the staircase, at least 10
I was gonna
floors.
say it, yeah,
Around 10 would be a good assumption.
and I'm just like, holy cow! I will
That's one
say
heck of a police station.
100%, and they still have high crime.
Well, that's because, well, you find this out later in the film, that
Oh
all
yeah.
the cops are corrupt. Well, most of them are. And it's also a big city.
And then we have to bring him up. I know we brought him up a little bit, but the Godfather.
There's a Godfather cop. So essentially, first guy who's commissioner dies, and then the Godfather cop ends up becoming the new top guy, and he sounds
Mhm.
just like the Godfather. I think that's just the way the actor speaks, because I don't think it's
100%.
because
I believe it.
there's no other way that he decided to do that accent, and they were like, yeah, go with it. It sounds too much like the Godfather to be any coincidence. So I wrote down a few cons and pros to this film.
I mean, I was trying to go through my memories bit by
Yeah.
the
Well, I went ahead and wrote them down because I
duration.
knew I wasn't going to remember all of these. So I wanted to go ahead and touch up on these. Catwoman felt shoehorned in to a certain degree. Like there were some bits where like she wasn't really necessary. Granted, there were a couple bits where it felt like she actually did contribute, but there were some other ones where she was just there.
Yes, I also feel like 100% she was, and then I was like, okay, I can get past that. But then they destroyed. I lost interest in the whole movie, lost respect for the movie for a brief part, and lost respect for Catwoman, all in like
I know which
one
line too.
scene.
I know the exact line. I think I know
I
the
thought
exact
it
line.
was unnecessary. I
Are you
thought it
talking about?
was very forced, very aggressive,
Yeah,
and
okay. I'll go over what line I think it is because I have it later on, but I think it is the all rich white privilege line, if I'm not
it is.
mistaken.
No, it
Yeah,
was
because that
100%.
that felt so shoehorned in, and
It
yeah,
I was very disgusted by
it definitely
Catwoman
did.
and the movie because I was like,
But I will say,
that is a verbal attack
on
on so much.
to be fair though, all the people in charge are white people except for the new mayor. So, and the guy already says that that Falcone has the new mayor in his pocket anyway.
Well, it's not
He
even
kind of
that. It
alluded
was
to it,
also yeah, it's also the fact. Look at the movie. There's only three black people in the whole movie,
yeah,
or non-white people.
and they're all seen as the
And
good guys, right? Is
well,
that what you're
you
gonna
have
say?
Catwoman, you have Jim Gordon, and you have the new mayor.
Well, and two of them are race changed. Just want to bring that up, which I don't like anyway. And I know you kind of are on board with me a little bit more ever since
For
James Bond. But
Jim Gordon, I was a little confused. I hadn't watched any trailers for this movie. All I knew that he was race changed, and that was it. But I enjoy the actor they chose. I'm a
oh
big
yeah,
fan of
I
his. He
I
does a
love the
great job.
actor, and I like the way they gave him lines, and I like how he played him out. But I just don't think
Then
that he should be race changed.
With Catwoman, she just doesn't feel like Catwoman.
No, in some aspects she does, in some aspects she
Like
doesn't.
in
Like
some
when
scenes when
she
she's like going to break into everything, and like when she fights, I'm like, oh, that's Catwoman.
that felt
But
like Catwoman, when
dialogue,
in other times it did not, and that
her
was
dialogue did not feel like Catwoman.
which is kind of like what I said earlier, where she felt shoehorned into a certain degree.
Hmm.
And I did not like the race change. However, Jim Gordon's the one where it's kind of like Nick Fury. I don't like it, but I applaud the actor, the line delivery that they're given, because every single time they're on scene, they
Yeah,
make it count, which
they do.
is something that, all right, I don't like the way that they went about this because they deliberately chose, and they deliberately chose to have this character race changed. So I don't like it, but I mean, you still
If
did a
you
good job with what you were given.
Yeah,
So
if I mean if you do it and then you completely change the demeanor
yeah,
and the way the character delivers lines they usually would deliver just to fit their race, I'm like, yes, you can do them to extent to fit the race they're given, but if you forcibly do it and overdo it, I feel like that destroys the character that was already made. But for Jim Gordon, I think they did a good job.
yeah, it felt like Jim Gordon. The only thing that they did was change the race, and quite honestly,
And
that's the one part I don't like. But I
but
will
they did everything else
but they did
well.
everything else good. So
And
that's why that's one part that still irks me, but it's not like a part that's like throbbing at me about this movie like Catwoman is at some points. Now, that being said, I did like the whole love tension that they kind of had with Catwoman and Batman because that does
I
like
did
seem
not.
comic book accurate.
I felt
However,
like it was a bit forced.
it did feel forced, but I like that they kept it comic book original. However, it did feel forced because Catwoman isn't really necessarily a villain in this, which is why it does feel forced. However, they did a good job
Well,
with keeping
it
it to the
felt
comics
forced because
because she's not a
it
villain.
was like he was like, "Oh yeah, it looks great. It fits the piece I gave you for your whatever it is.
Contact,
Yeah, your contact.
the contact camera wear, contact
Yeah."
spyware.
And I'm like, "Okay, okay." So he's like, and I'm like, "Okay, no play there. That's fine." And then she just kisses him out of nowhere, and I'm like,
Well,
all
not at
right."
that scene. Not
Not,
at that scene.
but at the very next scene where they meet, physically meet,
I
and I
mean,
was like,
eh,
okay,
I mean,
I
no.
don't quite get it.
The next scene that they meet is where she's
She's
when
trying to steal
Penguin,
the money,
yeah, yeah, where Penguin has the money
and
and
she
stuff.
realizes like her friend's dead, and it's like, oh no, Batman was trying to help me.
Yeah,
I guess I do love him, but I hate him at the same time. I'm gonna
yeah,
kiss him because I'm confused about my feelings, and also to confuse him, and also
yeah,
to have my character mean something in this, so that I can
yeah.
come back later.
And I had that here where some of Catwoman's lines fell short. That happens more towards the end in that middle part where it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's Catwoman. Cool. I guess
Yeah,
we get to see, some thieving Catwoman and Batman work together to like solve mysteries, and I'm like, that's on point, that's pretty accurate. And
I mean,
then
I'd
she
rather
just,
her be a villain and have
well,
that
yeah,
whole
well,
tangle.
kind of stab Batman in the back just a little bit, like steal, embezzle money
Yeah,
in a way
because I mean, they even
from
did
the,
that in the they even did that in the Adam West 1966 show, and they did that relatively
Mhm.
well. So I mean,
Just embezzle money, take money from the people you're trying to help Batman save. And I'm like, okay, that'll be fine. That'll be cool. It's a younger Batman. He'll be oblivious to it for the beginning, and then,
to some degree, to some degree,
yeah,
I think he'll
in the
know that it's
beginning, just a little bit.
that it's somewhat happening, but he won't completely believe it until later on when he like outright. I don't know. That's where I'm kind of up in the air.
And there was nothing like that. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm now your forced loved interest, and I'm here to kill the bad guy.
Would like to have seen some of like Alfred and like the Bat computer talking to Bruce, at least like as his other like bipartisan liaison instead of just Bruce doing it all by himself, which I think is going to happen in the next movie anyway, especially if he has Robin with him. He will want somebody else watching him and Robin, which
Yeah.
would honestly be cool to see.
I
So,
also like the fact that it's not just Alfred running the house. You do get to see one other person.
however, she is kept in the dark about Bruce Wayne or about Bruce Wayne being Batman. So,
Well, yes, but it's nice to know that there are other people in the house because 100% Alfred can't run and clean and do everything and help Bruce Wayne be Batman at the same
which
time.
he's not quite doing that yet. So, I mean, maybe that's
I
like,
mean, fair point, but still, it's nice to know that there are background characters.
and that'll
And
probably happen on later
but
next film anyway.
then
So,
again, his house was at the top of his company.
yeah, that did seem weird. But I mean, hey, when in Rome. I mean,
So
to be
where was
fair,
his Batcave?
probably at the bottom basement of the company, I would assume, because it's in the
But
city.
then wouldn't, if that's the case, wouldn't employees then accidentally stumble upon it and then have access to it?
I mean, to be fair, when he's driving around, he looks like a homeless biker. So I mean, to some degree, I can see that, but to some degree, also, he'd probably keep it somewhat secretive anyway. And also, the way it seemed was like it was a marked off subway tunnel to where she would go down and then cut
Hmm.
in. So I'm assuming it's
I
got to
mean,
be
okay.
underneath Wayne Foundation. However, he can
Yeah.
cut in through a subway tunnel and go however far he needs to.
Okay.
So to some degree, I can see that being quite confusing. However, I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not the first thing I thought of, considering that I thought they did that decently well anyway. They did decently well of hiding it to some
yeah.
degree. So,
Next quick point I'm going to bring up before you continue.
are we going to talk about
We don't,
Riddler?
yeah, I just wanted to ask, since this is a young Batman and we don't get to see the origin story of him becoming Batman, do you think he was or wasn't trained by Ra's al Ghul?
I hope that what they did was they went ahead and did like he was trained by Wildcat and Alfred in like fist fighting. He was then trained
Hmm.
by Richard Dragon on some of the other martial arts and Lady Shiva to some degree. I think it was more so Richard Dragon at the first, and then Ra's al Ghul to some degree as well.
Because they alluded to having Alfred train him,
Yeah, which I mean, to some degree, he
which
kind of
is
did.
understandable, but it's also the fact of him becoming full control over his emotions and becoming the Dark Knight. That was
That's more
more
so. That's more so Richard Dragon and
exactly. and I didn't feel any of that in this
Yeah,
movie. So I was like, I'm just guessing he's solely been trained by Alfred and maybe a few other people
I
here
would
and
think
there.
Wildcat would be one of the. It's probably
And
Zatara
maybe
as well.
we'll see them in like the next movie,
Zatara
which
would be one that I would think he would also be trained under, considering that he's the best escape artist. Well, actually, that'd
might
be
be
Mr.
cool.
Well, that would actually be the first Mr. Terrific, but he was also a magician, so he knows sleight of hand. He wasn't good at magic, but he was still able to see how it
Which
played
is
out,
yeah,
which is something that Batman needs to know.
I think it could lead into him having a small training arc, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if they're going to
I
just
think they're staying
stay
away from the
solely
origin.
in the
Yeah,
fact that he's more of a detective version instead
yeah.
of a combat heavy version, which I'll be okay with, but it's one of those things he still needs.
I think he's still got the skill. He's just not having to use them, considering that these are still low life criminals. And
But
so he's not
he's
trying to go
also
overkill.
he did take some shotguns to the chest.
But I mean, he's also got Kevlar on. So I mean, now
Yeah,
granted,
well,
I
you
know that's
also
not how
didn't see
bulletproof stuff works, but I'm just saying, like,
you
it still looked
also
cool.
I said you also don't get to see him throw any batarangs or smoke
Yeah,
bombs or anything like that for deception and any, so it's all just hand to hand brawling.
yeah. Which it's a newer Batman, so he's probably still. I don't know. I mean, to some degree, I
The
would have thought
only
he would
thing
have
you
at
got to
least been
see was like
trying
his
some of that.
taser.
He had a taser. He also had his like knife thing that would come out of his
Yeah.
chest. And he also
So
had like some like adrenaline looking
that's
like stuff, which you kind of
which
said you thought.
100% I still believe it's Venom.
Which I mean, hey, it very well could be. It also doesn't seem likely considering he doesn't also have his utility belt, and that's one of the ways he would have beaten down
Yeah.
Bane. So
I
I
mean,
mean,
it just looked like Venom because it was green and he
yeah, I get where
injected
you're coming
himself with
from,
it.
but I don't think that's what they were going
I
for.
know it's not what they probably intended, but
Yeah,
if that's the case, choose a different color.
Riddler went a little bad when he screamed like, "Ah, this is not how this is supposed to happen." You know, when he just did that monotone scream, and that part threw me off for a loop. But I mean, the rest of it was good. It's just that one little bit where I was like, "Okay, you've gone too far." But I did
Yeah,
like him though. Like overall, he did great. It's just that one little bit that still irks me. Which I mean,
yeah.
ironically, that's the one little bit I remember him for. So
I really enjoyed the fact of the Riddler's always just a fascinating character, very much like the Joker, both extremely intelligent and extremely conniving and deceptive.
and crazy.
So it's
Riddler's a little
really
bit more sane though, which they kind of
he
showed to
has
some degree.
he likes Batman because Batman gets his riddles. He wants to
Yeah,
help Batman, but he also wants to destroy Batman. While the Joker just enjoys Batman's company and wants to kill him, but won't kill him because he gets more pleasure off of it.
yeah. You just like seeing Batman in the chaos.
One thing I will say I enjoyed was how they played off the fact that the Riddler may know that Batman is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, to some degree, but I mean,
I was really upset with it in the beginning, but then when they played off that he doesn't, I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's
because
cool.
they made it look like he knew, and then all of a sudden it was like he doesn't know. He's just saying that name because that's the one person that
He failed.
angered him the most. I mean, I thought that was honestly pretty cool.
I was like, oh, that's cool. I was about to say that's too soon, way too soon. I was gonna be really upset if they did play it like
I
that.
didn't think they were, and then when they did that, and then they pulled a 180, I was like, "Holy cow!" They played this thing. They thought this thing through.
They wrote the script and they did a really good job
Yeah, they really
for
did
most of it.
for most of it. This is the one part I didn't like about the script. Selena is not a Falcone. She
Yeah.
never should have been,
Well, then again,
and that also
isn't
felt
it
like another shoehorned in point.
isn't it at times Selena comes from a rich family that went bankrupt and then she became an orphan that lived on the streets, and then other times
I know in let's see,
I know in some she is, I
I
believe.
know in Batman the animated series she's still rich.
Well, I know in like older TV shows and movies she comes from a rich
She's
family or she
yeah,
is rich.
she's rich and she is either needing to get funds because she's like more of an environmentalist or whatever, and that costs money, and she is not
Or she's just a
great at keeping
kleptomaniac.
money. I don't know. See, that's the thing. She is seen as rich. I know in the Batman the Animated Series, which is very largely based off the comics, she's rich in that. So I would assume.
Yes. Well, I know in the original TV shows and everything, she is as well.
So
That's
I don't.
why I was bringing it up.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
I don't
Yeah,
know either. I still think that I don't want to say they did a bad job. One thing I will say, her closet in her room had all this equipment on it. Where was the equipment when it was needed?
no idea. Also,
Also, I would think when you're open your closet and it has this equipment, you would close the curtain.
yeah, you would think so, but she also is a whore.
Also another fact that isn't accurate to Catwoman.
No, granted, she does use her
Feminine charms.
sexiness, I guess, to get her own way, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of how she eludes almost everybody
Mm-hmm.
without having the
I mean,
poison
it's the
or
same.
the
It's the
mind
same thing
stuff
with
like
like
Poison Ivy does.
I was about to say with Poison Ivy.
Like she gets away with it, but she also has the mind controlling stuff
She
as
has
well.
just in case you're too smart,
Just in case you're smart like Batman or like Superman.
or in case you're smart but an idiot like Robin.
Yeah, true. Carmine Falcone is a mob boss, not a pimp.
Yeah, to me, I was like, you're supposed to be some terrifying guy, and here you
You
are,
see,
you're just existing, and I'm like,
yeah,
you don't feel like
yeah,
a villain.
he seemed way more like a pimp than a mob boss.
To
Also,
me,
the iceberg.
Penguin felt more like the mob boss,
Yeah, I
which
know,
I
and
understand he is, but
yeah. Also, the iceberg lounge was started by Penguin, not Falcone. So
yeah,
yeah, that's one thing I really didn't get either. Yeah, and then we talked about this later on, where the mayor was shot in the shoulder, then she
and then
clenched her
it
stomach, and
moved
then
to
she
her
was,
stomach,
and then she was perfectly fine when
and
getting
then
out of the flood.
she had a sling that made no sense when it was
Yeah,
her stomach and then her
or her
shoulder or
shoulder.
shoulder.
It was her
I
shoulder,
was
then
like,
her
I
stomach.
first off, I thought she got shot in the head because 100% they had
I wish
snipers.
she would. Anyway,
I'm like, oh, she's dead. Okay.
yeah.
And then they drag her away and she's like,
If anything, her
I'll be
character was
okay.
just. If anything, her character was just there and somewhat of an annoyance to some degree. Yeah, you talked about this one where some of the transitions from actors to stunt doubles weren't as good.
They were not clean at all. I mean, the lighting they used, I mean, yes, it works, but it was way too obvious.
Yeah, and then one of the worst ones is when the exploding head of the Coulson, you can see
Mhm.
the fire come up from the bottom when they go to the scene where Batman's getting pulled back. You can see the fire coming up
Honestly,
instead of it just blowing up from here.
yeah, I was expecting this and like you would see the head explode or something
Yeah.
to that extent. But no.
So yeah, I mean, it was just fire coming up from the ground for that point, and it was just weird as all get out.
Yeah, really disappointing with that scene.
Otherwise,
Well,
the
I
fight
didn't
scenes
like the
were good.
fact that they evacuated everyone, then sent a bomb drone to go in. It doesn't make sense. You have the police force, but I'm pretty sure that the police force won't have this. I'm pretty sure that's
Well, to be fair, there were
or
some
have it on
FBI at
hand.
the. To be fair, there were some FBI jackets when
Yeah, but
during the
that was
flooding.
at the fight at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have been there when that happened.
I mean,
Like that could
very
have been when
well.
they got there, because I mean,
But they sent in
by
the
then they would have
drone.
been called.
They sent in the drone, and then the drone was immediately forgotten and not used. And I was like, I don't get the reason for the drone.
Yeah,
I know
well,
that's what you do, but I don't.
I don't know. One thing that does also irk me is Riddler is Edward Nigma, not Nashton. It's one line, you blink and you'll miss it, but it is Edward Nigma, not Nashton, and that comes from the Nashton thing comes from the comic books of recent. Nigma is what he's
Mm,
always been known as. So yeah, another thing I don't like is the Catwoman mask. That
you
was the
mean
weakest
no?
part.
You mean the ski mask? You
Yeah,
mean the ski mask?
the ski mask.
The ski mask that doesn't cover the mouth, just the nose?
Yeah. It's like
I was like, holy cow!
you're never gonna tell who I am. My nose is covered.
You won't get
What are all the cops
you
going
won't
around?
get you won't get my dental impression,
Yeah,
and
the
you
cops
won't
are
get my iris.
yeah, the cops are just going around. Who's the criminal? I got your nose.
Oh,
How
what
can
you
you give me
gonna
that
do
back?
now?
What you
I
gonna
got
do
the
now? You can't
nose.
take my nose. But yeah, mostly everything else I liked. Things I really liked were like the
Also,
penguin. I liked
100%,
the.
she can't do hand-to-hand combat with those claws she has.
I did like how they didn't over accentuate that she was actually fighting full grown adult males. Like they didn't like overplay it. It felt
I think, yeah,
roughly where she could handle herself and it not be like so over the
but
top.
still, 100%. How do you fight? You have these claws on your hand. Like, you get thrown around. You're holding the gun. 100% those claws are destroyed.
Most definitely. Unless they're retractable, which I think is what they were in like
No, these were nails. These
I
were
know, like
fingernails,
I know,
not
like
claws.
when
If they were claws like that, then yes, I would get it.
I'm
But
talking, yeah, I get what you're saying, but if they were retractable, that'd be cool. But they weren't.
they
So
would have been. I would have enjoyed that. That would have been really cool. But
yeah,
alas.
I did like the car chase scene with Penguin and Batman.
Oh,
That was
100%.
so
That
cool.
was that was a beautiful scene.
That was so cool.
It just makes you love the penguin even more.
Yeah, the Penguin is so good, and he is so good in that car
Ah,
chase
I
scene.
got you, you son of
I
a bitch.
got you! I got you! I was expecting to cuss when he saw the Batmobile just come down.
I was a little too, but he
But
didn't.
but honestly, he cut. It was funny when he did. You sons of, and when like Batman and Gordon just walked away, and he
Gordon
was
just
tied up.
walked away. I was
Like they
like,
drove away
yes,
when he was all tied up and stuff. The unsung hero of this movie is Penguin because he does such a good job in this. The guy who did him.
he is the Kronk,
I would recommend Penguin as the Kronk in this movie.
100%.
Yeah, just like Penguin and his portrayal of him. Didn't know how I was gonna like it at first. The first scene I saw him, I didn't know if I
Okay,
was
I'll
gonna like
ask you
him,
this.
but
I'll ask
my
you this.
goodness, they
I
really
know
turned
we
me
didn't
over.
get to see a lot of him, but between that penguin and Danny DeVito's penguin, who's better? Or do
I
you
would
still
say
need more
I
to
haven't
see?
seen Dana DeVito's Penguin, but
Mm.
I would automatically say the one I've seen, just because he's actually treated like a mob boss instead of like
Danny DeVito's
from what I've
is more
seen.
of he's a mob boss, but he's very aggressive to the fact of he bit off some guy's nose.
So he's a psycho. Whereas in the comics, he was seen more of as a sophisticated villain.
It's been a long time since I've
I
seen
mean,
Danny DeVito's,
at least in
but it's Danny
Batman
DeVito.
the anim- I mean, at least in the Batman the animated series, he was seen more of as a sophisticated villain, where he
Mhm.
saw himself as the higher class. Now, granted, he was a slob in some areas, but he was still.
Which Danny DeVito's character, Penguin, was very much a slob.
Which I mean, granted, this one probably is too. But to be honest, we haven't seen him eat. So, but hey, I like this
I
penguin a
will
lot.
say, as the penguin was leaving, being tied up
He
in
waddled
his
like a
waddle,
penguin.
I'm like, he's a penguin. I
He's
get
a
it.
penguin. I get it.
Funny
You,
joke.
you remember I'm still here? You're gonna untie me? You sons of. Oh gosh, what are you showing me? This is my partner. He got his face eaten. Oh what? Come on, open your eye. That banter thing was so good with him and
Just,
Jim Gordon. That thing
oh,
honestly makes the movie. If they have more of that in the next film, I am down. Where it's
yes.
Penguin
If
like
they
that.
keep if they keep Jim Gordon and Penguin the
If
same,
they
keep
keep
all
that
their actors
dialogue the
the
same,
same,
if they
yes.
keep that kind of
Well,
dialogue the
that and
same,
personalities.
and personalities of them the same, I'm 100% down. Despite like the stuff that you've done with this, you keep a lot of the stuff that worked, make some change of the stuff that didn't. Like Catwoman, she's already up and out. I don't want to see her in the next film. I want to see her if you're gonna show her again, show her in the third film. I don't want to
I
see her
was
in the
about to say,
second
I
film.
hope she's not in the second film. I
I
think
don't want to
she's
see
there
her
for
at all in the
purpose.
second
We
film.
need it. We need a grace period where Batman grows,
Yeah.
and he's not going to grow with Catwoman.
Oh yeah, 100%. Don't even do that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
wait and have her show up in the third movie.
yeah, I think she will show up in the third movie. I don't want to see her in the second one though. That's just me personally. Speaking of
Yeah,
speculations for the next film, do you think the next movie will have Riddler and the Joker teaming up, or do you think it'll have a third villain with those two villains in the
I think
background,
I
like
have a
working stuff
feeling.
off for the third film?
I have a feeling it's possible that Riddler and Joker don't break out until towards the end of the second movie.
And then that sparks the third film in which all
Exactly.
craziness is going to ensue. So,
Exactly.
okay,
So I have a feeling.
that's what I think, but I
I
think that
think
as well.
I
But
think that would make sense, and I think it would do a good job.
that'd be the most
Introduce a new
intriguing to me.
villain.
Yeah.
Introduce a new villain. Have them
Well, I
sent
think
to
what they're going to
Arkham,
do.
and then have the Joker Riddler break out together, breaking out some other people,
Yeah.
and then ensue the ending of the second movie
Yeah.
and the beginning of the third.
Well, see, what I think is with the next main villain, I honestly expect to see a lot of more small time villains of Batman's all being introduced or being sporadically throughout, somewhat like
Hmm.
Easter eggs, but they'll serve a purpose in showing that Batman's sort of popularity has sparked this new kind of villainry in a sense. to where villains are trying to make names for themselves. I
Which I
honestly would
feel
like to
like
see
is
that.
what they're gonna do, especially since the way they explained the Riddler with them saying like, Batman, you inspired me to do this.
Yeah, so like Killer Moth, Firefly, Man Bat would be awesome.
Which
Solomon
which
Grundy.
they did reference like with the riddle of El Rata. What
A
was
bat is a rat with wings too.
a rat with wings? I was like, you could bring up like Mothman,
Killer Moth.
yeah, Killer Moth,
Which I mean, to be fair, it's still early
Man
on.
Bat.
Man Bat,
Um,
Firefly would be good to bring in at
I'm
some
like,
point.
they made
Mr.
references to so
Freeze would be
many
awesome.
possible.
They could
They
have a
made
lot of different guys.
references to a vast majority of Batman's
That's who the next
villains
villain should
early
be.
on.
That's who the next villain should be. Mr. Freeze.
Oh, well, I was gonna bring him
And
up
have Harvey
in
Dent
just a
be the
little bit.
DA. Have Harvey Dent be the DA. Have Mr. Freeze be the next villain. And have Harvey Dent get into this crisis where he turns into Two-Face and then he's at Arkham and then flips a coin for letting the villains out. That'd be sick if that be the ending and you don't know whether or not he
Well,
let the villains out or not until the third film.
well, I
That'd be
feel
kind
like
of sick.
it could be very well him going cell to cell, flipping a coin for each prisoner he lets out, and he makes it to the Riddler and the Joker, flips a
And
coin, one is on heads and one's not.
I mean, I would see both of them getting out in some way or
Well,
another.
the thing is, if one doesn't get out, they're going to break the other one out.
I would think so.
So let's say the Joker gets out, he's going to break out the Riddler, or the Riddler's going to get out, break out his friend,
Well, I
the
think if
Joker.
Riddler gets out, Joker will definitely get out. However, I don't know if Joker's going to give the same courtesy to Riddler, considering that he's kind of
Well,
more
that's
loco.
that's what, yeah, that's why I referred to it as Riddler gets out, and he's going to break out his friend, the Joker.
Since this is going to be a
Hmm.
trilogy, will you watch this movie again, or will it depend on the next two films? Because I think I'm still going to watch this again no matter what, because it's a
I'm
good
gonna watch it
detective film.
again. The thing is, as we've said before, it's a 3 hour movie. It's a long movie. In the near future time I would watch this movie is if it's right before the second one comes out. Alright everyone, thank you for sticking through with this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we've inspired you to go watch the start of a new Batman series. Very excited for what they're going to do with it in the future. So hope you watch it. Join us next week when we watch the world burn.
Woo!
I knew you would be excited. So join us next week, and I'll hope you are in the end, or you're with us at the end of the world, or with us to watch the world. Hope you're with us.